Welcome to Kevin Richards VIPs. For those of us that absolutely love Charlie Chaplin, nobody portrays him better than my guest, Jason Allin. So I'm sitting with my amazing guest, and I mean, I don't often get to use the word genius, but this man is a true artistic genius, and I've been looking forward to getting to know you, Jason, for quite some time. You are so funny because you're so humble with this. And when I first met you, it was a New Year's Eve party. Sandra Roberts was putting it on. Yeah. It was at the Hudson, and I'm just standing there, and I'm mesmerized by you walking around because it was like there's people who say that they can do things, right? Oh, I'm going to be Charlie Chaplin for an event. And then there's somebody who just embraced the spirit of Charlie Chaplin, and you're it, right?
Wow.
Well, yeah. And I really appreciate what you do as a person for embracing this. So I've been looking forward to talking to you. So I'm going to shut up and talk to you now and learn about you. So tell me a bit about where you grew up and where you're from.
Well, I grew up in Bradford, Ontario, and moved to Innisfil when I was 17. And that was in 1988.
A little while ago.
A little while ago, yeah. So I moved right here in Lefroy and started dabbling more with theater after I was 17. But I still went to Bradford High even after that. I bussed right down there. The bus driver just happened to be a neighbor that went to Bradford High. So I finished my time at Bradford High.
Cool. So what was that like growing up for you? What were your interests back then? You started to like theater?
Yeah, I loved performing since I was little. And my youngest child is very, very similar to what I remember being a little kid. Like to entertain my parents, like to entertain friends, try to get attention any way I could. And tried to find my sense of humor and knew what was funny and what wasn't by people's reactions.
Yeah.
And, I started to take it pretty serious by the time I was a teenager and doing things on stage at Bradford High and then hearing about community theater in Cookstown, South Simcoe Theater. And, my drama teacher in high school, Stephen Bainborough, at the time, fantastic mentor for me and really helped me have a good example of what it takes to really perform a little bit without.
It makes a difference.
A huge difference. So I wanted to emulate a lot of those qualities, and I tried, and I found myself that way.
Yeah.
And
well, it takes the right drama teacher, I think. There's some teachers who can find the right things. I don't know if you're inspired by your math teacher, I don't know, but inspired by a drama teacher that helps you to find that out of your comfort zone. Sure. Or that out-of-the-box thinking is what they are inspiring to do, right?
Well, yeah, and I could relate to him because he seemed to be the youngest teacher in the school, so that was the closest to our age.
Yeah.
But he was also charismatic and everything a young boy wants to grow up to be, type of thing. So a lot of people, he well-liked teacher and fantastic with drama. So you kind of, if you're already inclined in that direction, you're going to really stick to it.
Sure.
And helped me out a lot with building myself.
Cool. So then you kind of progress from there, and now you're enjoying theater. What was your next step though? After you're in high school, I don't know how long it was until you met Barbara.
Yeah.
How long was that after high school you met Barbara?
I met Barbara actually way later. It was 2008 that I met Barbara.
Okay. So then before that, then there's a gap before that, the pre-Barbara, right? What was that like for you? Transitioning. What was it that you started to do first?
I first started to do things in theater in high school, and Stephen Bainborough, my drama teacher, suggested this South Simcoe Theater, community theater, which is free for everybody to get into and just express yourself and learn with a director how to take direction, how to take discipline that way as an actor. It's free. I mean, you usually have to go to school for that kind of thing. You'll have a musical director teaching you how to sing your part, if you're baritone or bass or whatever. If you haven't heard of that before, you start to learn how to do that. Broadway musicals, you learn Broadway musicals. So by going to South Simcoe Theater in Cookstown completely opened up my world.
And you're submerged in it.
Submerged, and working with people that are professional at times. Met a good director, Scott Hurst.
I've heard of Scott Hurst.
Scott Hurst, great actor from Barrie. And director and writer, everything, playwright. And another one of my mentors growing up, that was my next level up. And it really helped out knowing him. He became my director in a lot of community theater things,
Sure.
and learned an awful lot. That pretty much nailed it.
Well, you must have been doing something on a technical end too, because I watch that you're not just, Chaplin on the other end of the camera.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think you've embraced with the real Charlie Chaplin was he spent a lot of time on the other side of the lens.
Yes.
Right. He was very much his best critic, and I think you exude that. You have this technical thing about you too that there's no way you didn't have some experience and some practice at that as well too.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. That like the technical part of where the angle that I come in at my stuff, because I'm now a filmmaker and a writer and a playwright, as well as the actor. I film and everything myself, so it's an all-in-one thing. Where that came from is I actually went to school for architecture. And
techie.
Yeah, did a lot of tech work there. I owned a computer company in Barrie for a number of years.
Oh, wow.
And so the technical aspect, working with and teaching computers was my where I came from.
Sure.
So, but my passion was an art form of acting and creating.
Nice.
And so I did all that I had to do to pay for the white picket fence with the technical stuff. But I built skills running businesses and doing all that way and creating
gives you a
businesses.
cornucopia of stuff, right? Like you've got a real diverse bag of things you can throw out there and make it authentic.
And every single one of those skills that I didn't know what I would do with them have all gone into my Chaplin work, which I still can't believe, but that's the way it works.
Well, let's go to Chaplin now, because this is the stuff that you're most internationally known for.
Yeah.
And this stuff is, like, it's mind-blowing. It really is. You're a mind-blowing guy. So at what point did you say, you picked up the cane? Like, I'm not trying to go back to Robert Downey Jr. and where they called his bluff on how he chose to be Chaplin. And just, he was walking past a cloakroom and picked up a hat and cane.
Yeah.
Right? What was it for you? Where was that moment where you thought, hey, Chaplin?
Wow. Well, there's a pretty interesting story there, and it goes back to Scott Hurst, actually. He ends up being the nucleus of the whole thing.
Well, thank you, Scott.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah. Being directed on stage and brand new, trying to learn how to be disciplined with a director and other actors on stage, but still being a young boy and wanting to goof around on stage when you're getting attention during rehearsals. And I'm in the ensemble of, I can't even remember what musical it was. It was a Broadway musical we were doing. And of course I was not paying attention. And Scott's talking to one of the leading characters about a scene, and I'm supposed to be in the background waiting because we're doing a song and dance thing. So we're waiting, and I'm goofing around, and I kind of walked across the stage like Charlie Chaplin, because I've always loved Charlie Chaplin. I don't remember not knowing and loving Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
And my body is physically like Charlie Chaplin's. We're exactly the same height, same weight, same everything. My hair is actually silver, and so I dye it black, just as he did. This white stripe here is real stripe. I just don't dye that part. But if I left it, the rest would be slightly darker.
Yeah.
And so did Chaplin.
Cool.
So those similarities kind of made me realize I'm just like him. Maybe I can move like him. And I was really young, no real target in place. It just do it for attention. I did that on stage, walked and wobbled and did whatever I had to do. Scott stopped everything, walked right up to my face and said, if you ever do a show as Charlie Chaplin on stage, I want to direct you in it. And I went,
Wow.
I couldn't tell if I was in trouble
Or a compliment, right?
But an explosion happened in my head, and I was quiet for the rest of the rehearsal.
It's your aha moment.
Yeah, and I got a lot more serious after that and realized a lot.
It's the best moment.
Best moment. And it was years after. It wasn't until 2005 that another mentor, who you've interviewed, Arkady Spivak.
Oh, he's so great.
Oh, yeah. Well, Arkady saw a show that I was doing. I was playing Rooster in Annie the musical at South Simcoe Theatre. It would be my last musical that I did there, that I was going to do there, because I was hoping to go professional after that. And Arkady was there in the audience and wanted to talk to me after about things that he was doing. And he asked me if I was interested in going professional.
Well, his wheels are always spinning, right? He's always thinking five steps ahead of everybody on something, and he sees genius.
Well, he saw something, and I guess he wanted to put me in one of his shows, and as he did, he put me in a musical. I'm not a singer, and I had to sing these songs, and I played a character named Dick, and it was in Joanne Waitowich from Thunder Bay.
Okay.
And it was a great musical. Anyway, that was my first one, and I went professional right away. So he needed equity characters and actors, so he made me equity right away, which meant I could be ACTRA, which was my
The union's
prize.
a big deal.
It was a big deal for me because since being a little kid, since Sesame Street watching days, I watched Sesame Street and believed that that's not real. There's a camera there. Those kids are actors, and I want to be one of those. And I always wondered what it took to get there.
Sure.
And then I eventually found out it took union, it took actor, it took professional.
It does. And to get into that union, that's that golden ticket for a lot of people. Like, they have ways around it where they can give you temporary, actor status for particular things if they draw you in or whatever. But when you're full time, and it's a big deal. And there's a big deal with this.
Big deal. A big difference. But it cuts away a lot of the community stuff now that you cannot do. You can't do community theater.
Yeah.
So
that's why I haven't gone to LA. I enjoy being on Rogers local.
Well, it's extremely fertile, this ground.
It's big.
It's huge. And community stuff, Rogers is a testament to that. I mean, it's huge.
Rogers is inspiring. Rogers, I think, is something that is a foundation for people who really just, if you love your community.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's definitely community, but it's there's more to it for the individual. I mean, you get to express yourself to a completion of a project rather than dreaming.
Yeah.
It's real.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, looking at it from where I'm standing now, that's one of the most important things, is to actually execute your dreams fully, to see them, and then where do you go after that?
So on that execution then, when was that first Chaplin moment where you took a stage or a production or an event, or what was it? Where was your first time you got to be Charlie?
Well, it all happened with Arkady Spivak again. So this would be the next level, right? Going from Scott Hurst to Arkady Spivak saying to me, after doing a couple of shows with him, I did Glass Menagerie, Tennessee Williams. I played the gentleman caller in that.
Oh, cool.
So it was a serious play that I had never really
It's an intense play.
Intense and fantastic. And they mounted it in a really unique way there. And it was to my benefit that I was even involved. But after things like that, we're sitting around, and Arkady says, so, what kind of play would you like to do? Is there anything you'd like to do?
As Arkady would do. That's good. That's a good one.
So, Jason Allin. And so he says, is there anything you'd like to do? Anything at all that you'd see yourself in as a role? And I said, well, and other than the obvious ones that
dying to tell him.
Well, no, actually, I wasn't even thinking it. It came out almost automatic and I realized it after. But the things, after I finished saying things like, oh, I'd like to play in Chicago, the musical Chicago, I'd love to play the part that Richard Gere played. I'd love to do that. Oh, this, that. But I would really like to be Charlie Chaplin on stage. And I surprised myself. I was like, what? I never thought that before fully, but it came out.
Then it's genuine.
Very genuine. And he goes, what do you mean? And then I do remember at this point having a thought briefly back to Scott Hurst directing me days. After I dreamt about it and thought about it and visualized, it kind of opened up that thought that I never thought of since.
Sure.
And I just spewed it out. It's almost like I was waiting for this moment. I know I'm probably trying to make it all magical, but this is the way it happened.
Those moments that's what...
And it makes me crazy to think about it. And it's just...
So what does Arkady do with it then? So where's your first performance? Where is it?
Right there. It's actually at Talk is Free Theater. When it was at the Molson drive-through beer store, which is now Park Place.
Yeah.
There was the beer store there that was closed and turned into a theater.
I remember that.
Yeah, that was Talk is Free Theater. It was in that room, one of those rooms where we're sitting there, and he's asking me this, and I said, well, I'd like to be Charlie Chaplin in a play where I visualize it being that it's all blacks and whites, and there's jittery lighting on the stage, and it's like a 3D black and white movie, silent film.
And so he gives you this moment.
Yeah, he says, "Oh, that's nice." I said, "Yeah," because I was having trouble learning lines at the time. It was during a rehearsal, I believe, and I in my mind, I'm trying to go through my lines. I think it was Tennessee Williams' play, and of course, I want to get out of doing lines like any good actor wants.
Sure.
Right? And if I could only do a silent film character, I won't have to do lines. Right? Mm-hmm. Very good at physical comedy.
Yeah.
And he goes, "That's fantastic, but I want Charlie Chaplin to talk."
Why?
That's what I said. And I go, no, I think it's more artsy,
Mind you, the greatest speech ever was by
all
him.
Words.
Was the one that he did all words, and he's dressed up as Hitler.
That's true.
And that is probably one of the most amazing speeches of all time. It really is. It's in my top 3, I think.
And that speech, at the other end of it, I did last year on stage in India.
Wow.
Which, dressed in full costume, everything, and in a documentary that was filmed.
So let's unpack some of this. So we're gonna move past the local theater thing. We're gonna get into the bigger stuff.
Yeah.
So now you're heading to the stage. You're doing your first show.
Yeah.
What's your first show you've done as Chaplin?
Well, there's still that conversation with Charlie Chaplin, with our caddy. He says, "Well, if you write it, I'll produce it." I laughed. I said, "I'm not a writer. I've never written any show." And inside I'm going, "Yes, you are. Yeah, you are. Awesome. Yes, you are.
This is your moment."
And he goes, "No, write a show, but only under one condition, that Charlie Chaplin, the man, talks in it, and we'll see." I went home that night, and I swear I wrote a one-act, one-man play in hours that night.
Flow.
It just came out, and the end result was pretty much almost unedited from what I originally wrote. This play, and this play is called About Face. And I had studied Charlie Chaplin huge at that point. I mean, that night I really poured into it. I'd already known Charlie Chaplin stuff because of what Scott said. Yeah. I mean, it kind of gave me a beginning for it all.
Amazing, yeah.
It got me prepared for this moment, and it just dumped out on page. So then I got it directed. The director was actually the girl, Emily Key, who is actually the actor who is in the Tennessee Williams play. She went into directing, and now she's running a Norm Foster Festival in St. Catharines right now. But she's fantastic, super talented, and tried out directing my work. And we worked well together, and she just killed it. It was my thoughts put on stage for me after I wrote it, and I couldn't ask for better.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah, and that was in 2005. So I mounted that play at that theater, Talk is Free Theater. However, it needed to be double billed with another play because mine was only an hour. So we needed Act 1 and Act 2. I became Act 2. Act 1 was by a guy named Scott Hurst. So our caddy decided to put another one-man, one-act play with mine and double bill it for the night. Scott had been working on, for the past 20 years or so, a one-man, one-act show about Charles Laughton, Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Interesting.
So the fact that he and I were doing this bookend work and then came together, unbeknownst to me, unbeknownst to him.
What a cool fit.
And then our caddy is the missing link that puts it all together. Blew my mind again.
Yeah. So you get this incredible masterpiece completed.
I'd like to say so. Yeah.
Well, I think it sounds pretty awesome. So you move from this moment here, this incredible brilliant flow, and you're moving forward now. At what point do you start to realize that Chaplin is now a real thing? This is something that is now being, I'm not going to do the hook thing, but you're now being hooked. You're now...
Absolutely was. That moment, right at that moment, once I was given the universal go-ahead to write a play. And the tools and the place to do it. That support is so important. I love
when somebody's acknowledging that you can do this.
It's so important to just listen to people who you think are going to be your mentor. Just listen and take it. Go with it.
So how does India and all this stuff happen? How does this go from this guy from Bradford / Lefroy, starting off at the Talk is Free Theater, suddenly wind up in India? And by the way, your picture in India of you hooking the sun with the cane is one of my favorite pictures, not just from you of all time. Like I love that picture.
Wow,
There's very few
from
pictures
another
that,
artist. I stood there, and the sun.
yeah, but
stood
you had
there.
to get there. But I mean that moment is something that it captures you.
Yeah.
It captures Jason Allin. It captures Chaplin, and it captures India. Like it captures a really great moment.
It does.
It's a beautiful moment.
Well, I'm standing in salt flats where they bring in the salinated water and thin pools of water and let the water evaporate, and then they scrape off all the salt and then sell it worldwide. There's mountains of salt there, fields of it. It's fantastic. We were filming a documentary at the time, and who came with me was another Barrie guy, Brian Chisholm.
And he's a great photographer.
Fantastic photographer.
Yeah, and he's a nice guy.
And he makes me look so good, and made the sun look good and made India look good all in one photo.
Yeah,
you know
and it's
I mean?
funny because he's very discreet. Like he's very kind of does his own thing. He's very below the radar.
Yeah.
But he's an excellent photographer.
Yeah, he's an artist with pixels, and yeah.
So
really good.
so how does India happen? Let me unpack that a little bit. How do you suddenly wind up in India? And people are now drawing you to California. You've got something else coming up soon. But tell me about India, and then we'll go to California.
Yeah, India is fantastic. It was really, really going outside of my comfort zone and being open-minded about the planet and what Charlie Chaplin did. Because I had been studying Charlie Chaplin so much, I was getting a new mindset of almost, I'm thinking, the way Charlie Chaplin thinks, kind of really broad strokes, so broad that it's global sized. So randomly, I remember this because I get asked this, October 2013. So we're jumping.
Yeah, quite a bit.
I mean,
2005, 2008, 2013.
2005 was the first time mounting that show there, but then in 2008, in December, I remounted my play in Hamilton because Aquarius Theatre from Talk is Free Theatre, they saw our show, Scott Hurst and my double bill, and wanted to mount it there.
Nice.
So many years later, I did it again. But that would be the last time I do theater because I eventually realized I want to make my own films. Anyway, that's really what got me to India is there's a segment after doing that I started creating my own Charlie Chaplin styled films starring myself in them.
Yeah.
So I learned a whole new skill set, a whole bunch of new stuff.
And you've demonstrated that you can make things so authentically Chaplin, even in a modern day on a treadmill doing Uptown Funk.
Yeah.
I was in hysterics laughing at that because I didn't look at it as Jason Allin from Lefroy. I looked at it as you're Charlie Chaplin on a treadmill, what it would be like for him being on a treadmill. Like you captured so much of this time leap for somebody like him and what it would be like for him to be on a treadmill too. It was a riot.
Well, I got inspired by things that are modern, but I wanted to keep it authentic as well. So that's kind of a up to me formula. That's the artistic.
It was brilliant.
I had to make something up. So where I got inspired about the treadmill and dancing on it was from the Ellen DeGeneres show.
Yeah.
They had a guy that had gone viral dancing on a treadmill, which I'm sure a lot of people know about. And she had him on as a guest, and he's fantastic. It was mesmerizing, and instantly I thought, oh my God, if Charlie Chaplin had a treadmill back then, which there were similar ones, a lot more archaic, and things happened. I just kind of, I learned from what happened to me in my past about my Charlie Chaplin stuff and learned to let go and not create with an end result so much, but let things just go fluid.
And it's so great that it can be so international too, right? Because again, being a non-talkie, you don't have to learn a language to learn Chaplin.
Right.
Right. And it's a character as opposed to a language, right? And so when you're not being Chaplin in India, what is it like for you to plan stuff out? How are you planning things out? What's your next adventure then for Chaplin? Because right now you've got a cool new character that we're not going to open the box too much on right now, but you've got this cool new character in Barrie here, and his name is?
Jeeves Edwards.
Jeeves Edwards.
Yeah.
And he's at the Johnson residence,
Yes.
right? And that is about all we're going to say because
he's a good
I
guy.
know that you want to keep this in a box, but it is, from what I'm learning about it, is it's a wonderful new avenue for you too, and a wonderful other outlet to step a different direction.
For sure.
So good for you for that.
Wow.
Embrace that because I think it's awesome. So as Chaplin though, what is your next step for Chaplin? You said you've got something coming up in California?
Yeah, well, I've been to California 3 times before. One place that I've really been investigating was a place in Niles, Fremont, California, which is near San Francisco. And why that spot is because that's where S&A Film Studios was over 100 years ago.
Okay.
Spurs and Anderson had this theater, or this place where they created Keystone Cop films. No, sorry, scratch that totally. So at Bronco Billy.
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
Keystone, I'm getting mixed up with Max Sennett days. And,
they used to grab the back
California.
of the cars and take off.
Yeah, and that's where Charlie Chaplin first started.
Yeah,
Max
he walked
Sennett,
onto a scene.
Yeah, and you can see that as Robert Downey Jr. does it in the film.
And he nailed it too.
Yeah, big time. So Max Sennett, who was Canadian, but in California with this film studio, big movie studio, Charlie Chaplin, of course, became big there. Created some fantastic giant films, but then wanted to branch out and do more on his own, and got signed up with this place called S&A Studios in Niles, and they had another studio in Chicago. And in Niles, there's an actual film theater or a movie theater, a Nickelodeon building called the Edison Theater, which is now a museum. And it's in the Niles S&A Silent Film Museum.
Interesting.
And I've been looking at that place because I know the history. I knew the history of it back, and realizing that's actually where Charlie Chaplin sat and screened his films before they were distributed to the planet.
Yeah, there's some great old black and white pictures of him looking through things and looking through the film.
Oh, yeah.
I love those shots.
Yeah. Some of those are in his studio, those photos, but this is even before he had his own studio. He actually got paid enormous amounts of money to live in Niles or around Niles in order to film his first 5 films, I believe, that he filmed, including The Tramp, which is probably the biggest establishing films of the Tramp character.
And some of the most beautiful photography is from that too, with the little girl with the hat. And...
Yeah, we've got tons of imagery to just feast off of because of his almost 90 films that he's created as a Tramp. But 5, however, were created right here. And I can actually stand in the spots where he filmed them in Niles. So it was one of my dreams to just go there. Well, don't I get an offer from a curator and the historian from that museum, Rena, who sent me a message and said, we're having a thing called Charlie Chaplin Days here. And it's a weekend where they just celebrate Charlie Chaplin because he was there. He filmed right there.
Yeah.
His feet stood there. There's pictures of him there.
What a compliment for you to be asked to be there.
Well, yeah, and a massive feather in my hat that I can't believe came my way. But it's because I had already been in India, and there was a much unsurprised. I mean, there's no surprise.
Well, they recognized you through your genius of this. They see that you're nailing this character.
Yeah.
And it's not just that you're, a one-timer on this. This is a flow for you now.
Yeah.
So let me go, as we slowly have to wrap this up, and it's a shame because I love talking to you. I could listen to you talk about the history.
We can do this in chapters.
Okay, we could. Chaplin 1. So what I want to ask you then is, when you're outside of Chaplin and you're being a dad, you got 3 wonderful boys and a super supportive wife who's also learning her creative element now too, and doing some cool things that unfortunately we don't have time to chat about right now. But what's your message? What is your thing that you would love to tell people watching on Rogers or online today?
Yeah.
What is your message? What is it you want to tell people?
I would say definitely stay in touch with your creative self and always be trying to level up in your life. If you're a creative, then what's the next step, and get there, go there, and listen to your mentors. Don't get sucked back into the 9 to 5. I mean, you have to. You still have to pay for your life. You still have to do that, and I did. I did a lot of things I didn't want to do in order to have to pay the bills.
Sure.
But I didn't lose sight of what I really was my passion.
And that's really important.
Super
and I need
important.
to, unfortunately, gotta go.
Gotta go.
But it's so much fun talking to you, and thank you for being my guest on my show today, Jason.
Thank you for coming to my house.
Thank you. Cheers to you.
Cheers.